Just want to see something really cool. Ready? Oh, shoot.
Welcome back. Kate's having a breakdown, and we are the Lit Ladies. Today's topic is annotating. We're going to be talking about all things annotating today, our annotation styles, why we annotate, some books that we have annotated. I recently had someone comment on one of my Instagram posts where I was posting my annotations and being like, I don't really know where to start when it comes to annotations, so hopefully this is a help.
Annotating is where you write your books in some way, and as you're reading the book. Some people use it for different purposes, for analysis, or just to remember what's going on, or just to write your thoughts.
Three main ways of annotating are writing, highlighting, and tabbing. Usually I prefer writing and underlining. I don't normally highlight that much. I think the only reason I highlight is if I'm tracking like maybe like character progression or something like that.
I do it for plot points.
Yeah.
Or significant like character, like with high fantasy, kind of starting to understand some of the history or world building. Sometimes if it's a really significant quote, I don't have any thoughts on it, but I want to highlight it, and usually if I highlight it, I tab.
Why would you annotate? Why would you write in the books that you own? Doesn't that affect their resaleability? What's the point? Why would you want to deface your book like that? I'm going to go ahead and let Kate answer first. Why would you annotate?
I think for me, it helps me understand my books more, so I remember them a lot more than if I weren't to annotate. And also, for books that even, like if I didn't enjoy a book club book, I still sometimes can bear my way through books that I don't want to like point anyone out or call out any books personally that I think weren't good and I suffered through. But it helps me kind of get through it and still enjoy it because I can add my hot takes and
entertain yourself.
Yeah, and be able to then talk about why I didn't like the book. Because I'm not just going to not like a book and not have ways to support why.
It's sort of like receipts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but again, I'm not talking about any specific books.
She would never throw shade like that.
Why I do it, not just for books I hate, for books that are like, that I enjoy, and I want to, like if it's a series, and then high fantasy ways to, because world building can be very, very hard.
Can be a lot.
So it definitely helps with being like, wait, who's this character? Where are we? So having that to reference back to, especially for a series, is really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think that I didn't really used to annotate. In fact, I have an example here. Instead of annotating, I would write my favorite like pages or chapters. I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to try and... Yeah, so this is The Fire Chronicle by John Stevens, and I was obsessed with this book as a kid, but I didn't want to like write in it, so instead I just wrote down the pages like or the scenes that I loved, and that was kind of the beginning of my annotation journey. Because I always, I'm someone who I sell my books when I don't want them anymore so that I can buy new books and the cycle continues. So I never wanted to like annotate, and even now I only annotate when it's something that I know I'm going to keep or that I'm pretty sure I'm going to keep. And in fact, I learned my lesson the other day because I annotated. I was like so dead set on annotating a book, and then I ended up like hating it within the first couple chapters.
Yeah, she DNF'd it.
I was so dead set on writing womp womp.
That was all she wrote.
That was all. And then I was like, crap, what am I going to do?
You know what I'd say to that? Womp womp. On that note, that tabs can help. If you're thinking about annotating, there are ways you can get tabs and write on the tabs, so that if you do DNF it, you just like take the tabs
clear
out.
Ones. Yeah.
So that's a way around that if you don't want to make the same mistakes as some people.
Yeah, those tabs are basically, they're clear. Just put them in there like a sticky note and you write on them, and you can even underline them, whatever, and then if you want to sell it or you want to get rid of it or you just don't want the annotation in there anymore, you can just boop, take it right out. I've never used them. Have you used them?
Not the clear tabs. I use tabs to like tab the outside of the book, but I haven't written on the tabs, no.
Okay, gotcha.
Because when I want to write my thought, even if I didn't like the book, I usually keep most of my books that I've finished reading and annotated because I think that my thoughts are superior and funny, and I sometimes enjoy them more than I enjoy the book. And say what you want, it's entertaining to me. So I don't necessarily worry about it as much because I do find enjoyment going back. And if someone's like, oh, I read that book, what did you think of it? I can be like, well.
So annotating, I didn't really do it very much. It was very rare for me. And then I read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which was a 5-star. There's so much, like, honestly, is this on your TBR? Mm-hmm. It should be. It's worth it. There's so much lush prose, and, like, the way Heather Fawcett writes is just, you want to just, like, absorb it through your skin. Like, it's just so beautiful. And so I found myself just, like, wanting to underline, like, little things. And just making, like, little small notes, like, this has Howl's Moving Castle vibes, or, like, whatever it would be. And so that kind of kick-started my journey into annotating. But the thing that really got me into, like, okay, I want to annotate now, I'm fully on the annotation train, is when I read The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This copy, I annotated the heck out of it. First of all, it's signed by Stephanie herself, and then like I would add like little doodles, if you can see, and I just loved this book so much. I wanted to interact with it. So like, here we go. There's actually a YouTuber called Katie is Reading, and if she loves a book, she'll put full on like collages. Like she will decorate the title page and stuff like that. So yeah, this book, I annotated the heck out of it, and then I even did, like, this, just to make it, this I kind of regret. I thought that turned out stupid, but.
Actually, I don't think being an illustrator is in your future.
No, I don't think so either. This sort of made me be like, okay, I love annotating, I want to keep doing it. And the reason why for me is because I want to interact with a book. Mm-hmm. I think that annotating is one of the best ways to feel really immersed in a book that you're enjoying or even not enjoying.
Yeah. Hence this annotation. I don't know if you can see it, but it just says, ugh.
That about sums it up. It's a way to feel very immersed in the text and very much like you're interacting with it, like it's a reciprocal relationship between you and the book. One of the other reasons I annotate is when I'm looking for specific things. My annotated copy of Little Women is like my pride and joy. And the reason why I annotated this is because each color tab represents a different March sister. There are 4 of them. And I wanted to document or like track their character arcs throughout the book. So I would also highlight, let me see if I can find, So I would also highlight pieces of their character arc. And sort of when they're having a moment of growth or of like maturity, because it is really very much a coming of age story for them. I would highlight, tab it, and whatnot. This one was less so writing and more so highlighting and tabbing and tracking because that character progression.
With like especially a classic like that, I think there's a lot that you can like read the book just for a specific trope, just for a specific character,
theme,
plot, like symbols, things that are happening. So that's one thing that's really helpful with books. If you're reading like a classic or a harder book, that's something that sometimes those books are dense or they have a lot going on. They're more complex, so it's nice to have where you can reference
easily
things.
Look back. For this one, I annotated this for a video. This is Isn't It Bromantic by Alyssa K. Adams. This is one of the Bromance Book Club books, and the 2 main characters are actually Russian, and my husband is Russian. So the reason I annotated this was I was trying to catch all the little Russian things and like ask him about them, or like think about them, or like, you know, because I have a little bit of experience, you know, sort of like being in the Russian community and sort of observing it for the last couple years. So just being able to kind of be like, how well did this author do at sort of like representing that community, and what references are there to culture, to foods, to attitudes of, you know, Slavic people. And it was really interesting. I really enjoyed that. This last one, Fireborn by Rosaria Munda, I annotated, it was just tabs every time that the two main characters would have like a really cool moment, because their dynamic was the most interesting part of this book to me. The two main characters are called Leo and Annie, and I just like loved them so much, and their complex like backstories, dynamics, baggage that they were dealing with, I just thought was so fascinating. So I just tabbed every one of their interactions that I thought was super interesting, and that's all I did. I didn't really write in it. I didn't really highlight or underline. It was just the tabbing. Lastly, I annotated How to Walk Away. Yeah, so I made a key, and then it's because me and my community group are actually all gonna kind of do like a book exchange this year, annotate each other's books, and so I annotated it for them to like read my thoughts, to like interact with the text, and for them to interact with me interacting with the text. So it kind of like formed this like little like circular, like really cool dynamic and relationship with this book. And also highly recommend How to Walk Away. Is so good.
I don't have quite as many, because I kind of like with what Madeline is showing is it's really per book. You start reading the book, and I think for me, I know some people are really strict with how they annotate because that's the best way for them to read. I know how I'm gonna annotate the book as I go throughout reading the book. Like, I'll change the tab colors when the plot starts to develop, when I'm seeing things happen with characters, if there's a romance happening. But for like this one, I don't have any tabs, but I do have a lot of annotations because I didn't really like this book, but I had to read it for book club. Or I didn't know I didn't really like this book, but as I started to get into it, the first like 100 pages I barely annotated. Oops. I say I barely annotated, and there was one.
There's so many annotations. Take a shot every time he says, "Get your ass in the truck." Does he say that a lot?
Yeah, I have a bingo. I made a bingo card.
You did not!
It's like things we never got over bingo. Every time Naomi mentions coffee, the quote, "She's not my type," the quote, "Get your ass in the truck," the use of grumpy. Naomi thinks about seeing Knox pee outside.
She what?
She saw him pee outside, and then she would not get over it. I'm sorry, I know people really like this book, but I didn't.
Look, you want to read it now? That sounds awful. What? Hold on. What?
This is why you annotate books.
Y'all read this? So this is an example of you disliked the book, so you were trying to entertain yourself while you annotated, and you were annotating it for the purpose of book club.
Yeah, and then I didn't tab, but I did sticky note because we had the book club happy hour, and so when I don't like a book, I have reasons.
You annotate most of the time, I feel like it's less often that you don't annotate.
Yeah, because I think my thoughts are relevant.
What I've noticed is when it's a book that you are like actually finding, you know, literary worth in, you're annotating for more like themes, character development, historical, whatever.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
So, for example, these are books that I actually really enjoyed reading, and I really enjoyed the experience. Like Madeline said, it kind of helps you interact with the book, feel like you're a part of it. The Jasmine Throne, this is a high fantasy book, and I really, really enjoyed the experience of reading it, and I enjoyed the world building, the characters, so that's kind of where the different tabs are, is like the plots, and then like the characters, because at first you're introduced to these characters, you don't know their history, why they're where they're at, kind of how everything is playing into things, and so as those are building, I'm tabbing there, and then as like friendships are building, I have a tab there for that, and so I really liked it, and I did annotate it as well, because I like had parts that I didn't necessarily tab, but like I had annotations of like the political dynamic, and then like themes of like meaning of freedom and use of power. So like when I tabbed, I would highlight parts of it, and then again I would annotate on like why I highlighted it, because I think that goes back to like the intense classes in high school where they would be like, when you quote it, you have to like have a reason, explain it, like when you quote it. So I think I have that like
breaking
need
down the text.
So I want to like look back on why did I highlight this. Usually I give like a reason, but
I also want to just mention, like, you know, that comment that I got on my one of my Instagram posts made me realize that some people are afraid because they don't know where to start. Like they're like, I want to annotate, but like where do I start? I think just like find a book that you really like or really hate and just start writing your thoughts.
From the beginning of when I start a book, usually I write in it.
There's no pressure to make it look pretty and aesthetic. I feel like a lot of times some of the posts we see on Instagram are like, my aesthetic annotations.
I don't have a key for this book. I do have like words that were, this author provided a character list at the back, but there were some words that were, what I really liked about this book is it had a lot of words that were from like kind of had like a little bit of cultural context of this author that was kind of cool, of being able to look up the words that she was using that really helped with the world building and the magic kind of system, or what they're using, what's going on there. So that's what I did with this book. I didn't have a key. I just kind of went with the vibes. So I just tabbed it. And then I have The Three Body Problem, which is a science fiction book. I tabbed it in a similar way. Fantasy, usually I'm tabbing it to try and keep track of the world building, because for a novel such as that, it's a high fantasy novel, so it can be intense. I love the writing, but it is things that I had to go back, and this book had over 10 point of views from different characters, so that was a lot to keep track of, but the tabbing and the annotating helped. Three Body Problem, also really liked this book. It's science fiction, so it's not as much world building, where science fiction a lot of times instead of world building, it's really putting you in that science mindset, giving you the science,
the historical mindset.
yeah, which this had a lot of that, but some science fiction doesn't. It had a lot of just understanding the phenomenon that's going on in this and building that up and building kind of how it was, because science fiction isn't necessarily magic as much as it's like scientific theory and people like expanding the limits of our knowledge and things. So as that's building, that was kind of what I tabbed, was mainly the building of the conflict, and then I had the two different tabs for the conflict, and then like and the plot points, and then the building of like the scientific things that were, I don't want to do spoilers, but like the building of like what's going on, and developing kind of what we're dealing with. And then I also tabbed that this had a lot of historical context. This was originally written in Mandarin, and so I think sometimes we forget when we're reading books that were written in our native language by English authors or English-speaking authors. There are some English-speaking authors that are like from Canada, and so there's certain things that there are like a little bit of cultural references that they make that you don't understand, whereas this had a lot of cultural references and political references, because that is one of the themes in this novel. But it is something that I felt it was refreshing, because I knew a little bit about the context of what he was referencing and talking about it, and it is interesting because if you're reading this in your native language and you're in China and you've grown up there, it's not quite the same as me reading it, because I'm like, wow, I'm learning so much, whereas they kind of already know this stuff.
Right.
So that's interesting. But so I tabbed that because I'm understanding the context and building it, even though it's like science fiction. So that's kind of how I interacted with it. I don't have like quite as many books as Madeline, because I kind of just go with the vibes. Every book is different. I really enjoy annotating. I feel accomplished. I feel like I completed an assignment when I finish a book. I don't know, and it helps me remember the book a lot more. It helps me be able to talk about it. So, because some people, like I had a couple of ladies in my book club that say like they'll read a book on their Kindle and they don't remember it 2 books later. And I don't really deal with that.
Well, I think also, like, it was a prime example of how we use annotations to both remember and to sort of, like, mark the things we want to discuss, because I was flipping through my annotations in the Throne of Glass video. So it's all just kind of, you know, it helps. There is benefit to it, but if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. But if you're, like, scared to start, I would say just start. Yeah. Just start with, you know, like I said, either a book you really, really love or a book you really, really hate.
Yeah.
Either way, you're going to have things to say.
Yeah, even if it's just womp womp.
We are the Lit Ladies, and we are literally done with this video.
Yeah.
That's our new outro. I've decided.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
So good.